Hey friends, Steve here, and I'm joined by my friend and partner Gavin Conti. We are in Greenville, South Carolina, Gavin's hometown. I've flown out here so that we can make a video announcing our brand new Surf Skate Love wheels that we've created together. Now there's a reason why I've involved Gavin in this process. As you know, I am new to skating entirely. I've only been skating for about a couple years and new to surf skating as well. And so in everything I do, I'm always relying on people who know what they're doing with experience, and one of those people is Gavin. So Gavin, can you just help them understand your skating background?
So I've been skating since I was a kid. I started on a popsicle board, hitting the skate parks on weekends with my friends. As I grew up, I tried all different styles of skating. I've tried downhill skating, fast free ride, slalom skating. Really my passion these days lies in long distance skating. So that encompasses both pushing and pumping. Now us LDP guys tend to nerd out on the details. So for the last 10 or 15 years, I've really focused on studying the different, mechanical principles and different characteristics that contribute to the different experiences and feelings that we get while we skate on different setups.
And one of the most important aspects that you focus on is wheels, right? I mean, there's people who try out wheels, but you are like the wheel nerd of all wheel nerds.
Yes, I definitely have focused a lot on wheels, wheel shapes, wheel designs. I personally have found myself to be very picky about which wheels I ride. There are a lot of brands that I'm not the biggest fan of that make great wheels. It's just really comes down to a lot of preference, and I have certainly grown to understand what I like in a wheel and what seems to feel best for me.
So wheels are something that Gavin and I are just always geeking out about. We're on the phone all the time talking about it. And as you know, we together did a video on what are the best wheels for surf skating, and we featured many of the aftermarket wheels that you see on the table here. And really it was just a process of us both riding as many aftermarket wheels as we could get our hands on that met surf skate wheel specifications and just comparing notes. Well, over time, we just started talking and we were like, well, why don't we just create our own surf skate wheel? And originally the idea was we were gonna try to do like a co-branded deal with, say, a Seismic or an Orangutan. And then as we talked it out, we were like, why don't we just create our own wheel? And so we did our research. We have found one of the best manufacturers in the United States who produce some of the finest urethane in the business. And Gavin was the guy who really led out that whole prototyping process. And after months of prototyping and a lot of different iterations, we finally came to what you see here to start with our 4 sets. So Gavin, tell us a little bit about the 4 sets of Surf Skate Love wheels that we've come up with.
So what we've really done here is we aimed to take some of the characteristics that we found to perform best across some of our favorite wheels, and we really aimed to put together a wheel that is optimized for the sport that we love here, surf skating. As Steve has mentioned, we went to a leading urethane manufacturer in the industry, and we relied on them to help us achieve our goals with these wheels. So they provided their chemical experience and expertise to help us yield a product that we are very proud of here. There are plenty of physical characteristics that contribute to the feeling of the wheels. However, it is very important to have a very strong foundational design when it comes to the urethane. This particular urethane is very smooth, grippy, fast, and durable, which were some of the main things that we set out from the beginning to achieve. So what we aim to do is create a wheel that suits this style of riding best. So what characterizes this style of riding? Very quick, aggressive turns, grip. You want to have a wheel that is very durable and resilient because those aggressive turns are going to be smushing that urethane into that concrete. Surf skating for me is all about the art of grip. It's all about your weight placement. It's all about being able to change the momentum of your body weight through aggressive, tight maneuvers. Really, the wheels are a very large characteristic that enables you to do that. You need to have a wheel that you can really throw your body weight into and trust that wheel is going to perform consistently.
Gavin, can you tell us now about these 4 specific sets and the precise specs on each of them?
We have 4 different options. We have 2 different diameters and 2 different diameters. We have the 65 millimeter wheels and the 70 millimeter wheels, both which are offered in 2 different diameters. We have the 78A diameter as well as the 81A diameter. The 78A is going to be a softer wheel and the 81A is going to be a slightly harder wheel.
Before we get into the minute details of these, can you give us a big picture recommendation of what styles of riding and riders would you recommend each of these for?
The 65 millimeter option is going to be slightly more adapted for a more aggressive style. Perhaps if you ride in parking lots, smaller areas, if you have a very snappy, slidey style, the 65 millimeter is probably going to suit you best. Now we have the 70 millimeter option, which is going to be a little bit more adapted towards rougher roads, longer riding. So a larger diameter wheel is going to accelerate slightly slower, but will also decelerate slightly slower. So it will roll for longer. Now, same thing applies for a 65 millimeter wheel. It's going to, relative to the 70, it's going to accelerate faster, but it will also decelerate faster and slow down a little bit quicker over that same rough road.
And then when it comes to choosing between the 78A durometer and the harder 81A durometer, what's going to be the best? How do people make that decision?
Generally speaking, the softer 78A durometer is going to be a bit of a grippier wheel. And generally speaking, the harder 81A wheel is going to be a little bit more prone to sliding. Now, when you compare the two directly, a softer wheel is going to feel a little bit more plush. It's going to feel a little bit like a softer wheel underneath your feet. However, you know, it's always a give and take. So a softer wheel will be slightly less durable than its counterpart in the harder durometer.
So you really just have to hone in on your personal preference, but I'll just kind of bottom line it for me. Personally, I like longer distance riding, and I ride over a lot of rough surfaces. And so this right here, the 70 millimeter and 78A, this is my favorite wheel of our lineup. What's your favorite wheel and why?
So generally, I seem to prefer the 65 millimeter diameter. I enjoy both durometers. However, for my style, with the art of grip being my priority, I certainly seem to favor the 78A durometer.
Gavin, now get into our wheel specifications, because really those are kind of the two things that set our wheels apart from anything you're going to ride on aftermarket wheels, is the urethane formula and the precise specifications for a surf skate application.
What we have really done is combine some of our favorite characteristics across our favorite wheels. So let's compare it to a love handle. We have both 65 millimeter wheels here. However, the width and contact patch is slightly different. The width and contact patch on our 65 millimeter wheel is going to be slightly narrower by about 3 millimeters. The benefit to your riding experience is that it's a little bit quicker of a turn transition. You have less urethane that's in contact with the concrete. As you're doing these very quick and aggressive maneuvers on a surf skate, you want a wheel that can change direction very, very quickly. Now, if we compare to another very directly comparable wheel, we have the Seismic Hotspot. We talked a lot about these wheels. These are actually outstanding wheels. 66 millimeter diameter on the Seismic, 65 millimeter diameter on ours, and a very similar contact patch. However, if we're splitting hairs, we are actually still a bit narrower than the Seismic. One other characteristic while we're comparing to a Seismic wheel here is the urethane depth. If you look at the core on this Seismic wheel, it's got a very large core with a shallower urethane depth relative to what we have here. What that does for your ride experience is it feels a little bit smoother, it feels a little bit more plush. In addition to the width and contact patch of the wheel, there's one other characteristic that is fundamental to the way that the wheel rides, the way it grips, and the way that it wears. The core placement is that critical characteristic. So there are commonly 3 different styles of core placements in the industry today. You could have a wheel that is side set, where the core is up against the side of the wheel here. That's where the bearing is right on the outer edge of that wheel. There is a center set placement, which is where the core is directly in the center of the wheel. And then there's also what would be denoted as an offset placement, which is somewhere in the middle. And that's where the magic happens, in our opinion. So a center set wheel will sacrifice some bit of grip relative to holding all other variables constant and going to an offset or a side set wheel. However, a side set wheel seems to be very prone for coning. It puts all of your weight on the inside portion of the wheel, meaning the outside is not carrying much weight, and you will see that in the wear pattern. You will see drastic cones on side set wheels. Not only did we make a narrower width and a narrower contact patch, we've also optimized the core placement where we wanted it, so that we can have a wheel that provides similar amounts of grip as a wider wheel while maintaining the width that allows us for the agility we were aiming for. Another characteristic that greatly affects the way that the wheel wears is going to be the lip shape and the chamfer design. When I say the chamfer design and the lip shape here, I'm really talking about the edge of the lip and how it interfaces with the ground as it rolls. A sharp 90-degree lip here is going to be very prone for chunking, because that sharp lip is going to be rolling over all sorts of imperfections, and it's very easy for that lip to catch an edge and then rip a whole chunk of the wheel off. So we have radiused both of our edges. The wheel is not prone for chunking through normal surf skate aggressive style riding. Now, another very interesting part here of the lip design is how it will wear in terms of coning. As you wear through the wheel is going to take a shape of a little bit of a cone. It's a natural, unavoidable sensation on an offset or side set wheel. We want to make a wheel that lasts for as long as possible. As that wheel cones, the properties of how it feels will definitely change. Relative to some other wheels, we have found that this particular concoction of width, core placement, contact patch, and chamfer/radius design, however you want to call it, yields a wheel that lasts for a very long time. Now, it will still cone, it just seems to have less of a drastic coning shape, so you get a little bit more of a usable wheel through the life of that urethane. With all of those characteristics and details said, it's important to note that these wheels are just a lot of fun. They are very grippy, they're quick, they have very good roll speed, they are very durable. There are a lot of other wheels to choose from and a lot of personal preferences. But again, with all of that said, I am confident these wheels will be a lot of fun for you.
So there you have it. Those are the Surfskate Love wheels, which you can get at surfskate.love/shop. We are super proud of these wheels. We have a lot of fun on these wheels. Can we guarantee that they're the absolute best wheels for you? No, because there's personal preference involved. But we can guarantee that they're fun, that they work phenomenally well for surf skating.
Absolutely.
And we invite you to try them at surfskate.love/shop.